Hey, what's up? This Dilio, and in this video, I'm telling you why I'm not going to be subscribing to Spark. All right, so if you are a UAD fan, you like the plugins, you know, it was already on the Mac. Universal Audio came out with a subscription program in which you could subscribe and download a series of plugins that you could use natively in the DAW for a long time. You know, the UAD plugins were plugins that you could not use in your Pro Tools your DAW. I'm not going to keep doing a list of, you know what I mean. Anyway, you couldn't use the plugins because you had to have a piece of Apollo hardware, which is the whole point of why I bought the hardware in the first place, because I wanted to know what the fuss was about. I've seen it in plenty of studios, but I don't get the real experience of using them till I can kind of sit down in a quiet place by myself, not answering the questions of others, or not just left alone to see for myself what it does. And I was very pleased with the Apollo system. It was an expensive system, and there is some buying into it. But the result is really great. Having real-time auto-tune, real-time compression, real-time vocal processing, the vocal response that you're hearing right now is being processed in real time by that interface with the hardware, and then sent to the computer and put to tape. So, you know, the first thing is that I didn't want to buy into it because I already bought in. I bought the hardware interface. I bought plugins. These plugins are not cheap plugins, and thankfully I was able to get a few of them. And with those plugins sort of created a new experience for me, because now I have effects processing, and you know, that's based off of real hardware. I'm able to run musical instruments and have them go through real-time effects with real-time effects processing. It's really cool. Now, normally when I want to add effects to plugins, stuff like that, you know, you got plugins or synthesizer plugins with reverb delay built into them. Case in point, like when I hook up my Moog to the Apollo, I get such a cool sound with the reverb and delays. It's a lot of fun. So, you know, for me, I've already bought into it, and which piggybacks to one of my last points about this, but I already bought into it, already bought the plugins, and there's a lot of plugins that are being included in this bundle that I already have. And I don't have a lot, but there are some that I have. I'm like, well, okay, I already got that. And, you know, when I first started hearing about this, I didn't really pay attention. I'm like, okay. But then as I understand it, the UAD Spark plugins from this bundle does not run on the hardware. And I'm like, and in my opinion, I'm like, Universal Audio, keep that same energy with having us use the hardware. So I'm like, okay, this is great. Well, maybe I can use plugins from that bundle on the hardware. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work like that. So now, you know, so I'm like, okay, well, I guess this party isn't for me, because if you're going to offer these plugins for $20 a month, and you're not going to allow me to use these plugins on the hardware, which is the whole reason why I got into the ecosystem in the first place, the value isn't there for me. Again, that is for somebody who is curious about these plugins and never used them. And to be honest, I wasn't too curious about the plugins because I bought hardware. You know, I bought a hardware LA610, and it worked great and it sounded great. So I wasn't that interested in the Universal Audio plugins, because I was already kind of, my vocal chain was pretty tight with the microphones I had and the processing I had going to tape, and I was just curious of seeing what it was. So I found this used, and I said, okay, let me try it out like that. And so it's a premium product. The preamps sound great and all that. But again, the plugins that come into the Spark bundle, which they're saying they're going to expand, so they're going to Nintendo Switch this thing. You know how Nintendo came out with the Super Nintendo emulators on the Switch, and then they kept adding more games, and then you got to get the expansion. Anyway, you know, they're going to have more plugins, but it's like, I got tons of plugins already. Studio One comes with a lot of plugins. Everything comes with a ton of plugins. So, and I know not all plugins are made from the same cloth. They're not all going to respond the same or sound the same. There's a lot of very interesting calculations that go on there, and I do think that the UAD plugins do sound really great. In my opinion, I feel like the Valhalla Verb is undefeated for reverb, but just to have that cool experience of feeling like you're working with vintage gear, like the Lexicon or the Capital Chambers plugins are really cool, and they sound great because I did a demo on it and it sounds really good. And so one of the things that made it special for me that I won't get with this is being able to run plugins in real time. That's what made this whole thing special, and yeah, you can bring your buffer down and try to push your computer as fast as you can with the USB 3.0 protocols. I remember I used to try to do that with FireWire and 2.0, and then even Thunderbolt. Like, I imagine somewhere along the line, I guess Thunderbolt's that fast, but I don't know as fast as this as far as, taking an input monitored voice from your microphone, putting it in there, hearing it process and come back out. You get kind of an echoing effect, but it depends. So if you got a lot of plugins, that time slows down. This just works. It just does what I like it to do. And that's what made this experience special. So, I don't really feel like in my position, I gain a lot from this, but this is from me already being an Apollo interface owner. If I wasn't an Apollo interface owner, I could see more value there. But with the Apollo interface, and then, me kind of like, all right, well, I guess I'll save up or maybe wait for some plugins to go on sale, and then I'll get a harder plugin. It's cool. And, it's $20 a month is not cheap. You do the math, and of course, every subscription has a discount if you try to go yearly with it. But that's a nice little chunk of change for a set of plugins in a vast world of plugins that already do a lot of things that they do. Yeah, they got their own flavor and their own sauce, but it's just not enough for me to tip the scale sonically and mixing because, I got LA2As and Studio Ones. I got Pultex and Neve, sort of EQ simulated, and Personas. I mean, a lot. It's interesting because a lot of these plugins are based off of hardware. Like, there's really popular hardware, like for instance, the Moog Model D, right? You got the Moog Model D, and it's like 10 billion people making their version of the Model D. Even Behringer made their version of the Model D, right? And it's like the same thing with these plugins. Everybody's got their version of the 1176. Everybody has their version of the LA2A. Everybody has their version of these things. So, after a while, like, you go into the world of diminishing returns. Do I think that the plugins probably color it? But, a kind of weird part of me wants to experience that happen in real time, printing the tape. I like the print to tape process. I like to have a nice vocal chain going to tape, so I don't have to worry about it in the mixing process. And I think that you don't get that with these plugins. Some of the people might like that. But again, this is coming from actually having an Apollo interface. And so, if they're going to Netflix their plugins, then I think that they need to come up with a larger selection. But obviously, I can see they're in the business to make some money. They already got my money with these hardware plugins. I think I'm going to keep that same energy and stick with what I got. But the cool thing is that you do get native versions or versions that run in DAWs of the plugins that you already purchased in the UAD ecosystem. So if you already purchased plugins for this thing right there, you will get the native version. But I just had a thought, how does that work with Autotune? Because Autotune Pro already has their Pro plugin, which I already have, and I already have the Autotune that runs in here. So do I get a native version of Autotune because I have this? So I don't even know what the fine red tape is, because does that mean that every last plugin that I bought for the Twin here, does that mean I get that? I don't know. I haven't tried it out yet because I don't feel like installing that if I'm just, I'm really good, so, it's cool that I'm already getting the plugins that I own transported to native. I think that's a good balancing point right there. And so since I'm already in that ecosystem and I don't mind investing because I like the results, and, I like that zero latency action. I think that's especially going to tape or recording with that and not worrying about that buffer issue. Of course, computers are more powerful, but I don't think we have perfect zero latency monitoring like that. There's always some sort of delay, even if you bring the buffer down. I still think that it needs a little work right there. But let me know in the comments below. What do you think? Do you think this is something you want to invest in? Would you do the trial, or are you not interested at all? Or are you a Apollo interface owner? And if you are, do you see much incentive in this? If the suite of plugins is not going to run on your hardware, that would get me to bite. If the plugins that come in there ran on the hardware in that subscription, that would get me to bite. I'm Delio. You're watching the Delio T2K YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe. Help me push this channel up forward. Make sure you hit that like button. Help me out, y'all. I'll see y'all later. Peace out. We out of here.